Hey everyone, so welcome back for lesson 8 of unit 6. So what we're doing today is the very last day of new content for this unit. The rest of this unit is focusing on review, preparing, and assessing. So kind of wrapping up the unit for the next 3 or 4 days. Today is the last day of new stuff to look at to better our understanding of the Great Depression and the federal government's response through the New Deal. All right, so here's what we are up to today. So notice a few essential questions going on. I don't know if you've noticed this trend, but as we've gone further in the unit, there's been more essential questions on the lessons we're doing daily. And the reason for that is that we're getting closer and closer to being able to answer that question for your axes paragraph. And also, all the different essential questions start to interplay because we're getting deeper into the topic. So we've got 3 for today. One is about diverse perspectives on the government's response to the crisis. Why did people have differing ideas? We've looked at this in the past for what are political ideas and all that terminology. And then with the last lesson, you looked at how those political terms during the Great Depression and New Deal materialized through different plans and criticisms of FDR himself, often based on political ideas. So we're going to be looking at political points of views on government intervention again. Next one, how did the US change economically, socially, and politically because of this crisis? So what's going on is, like I said, we've kind of reached the end of the unit, so we can start moving from saying, here's what's happening to here's what's happened. What does it all mean? How did we change from the beginning of the Great Depression to the end of the unit with the New Deal? What changed in our country because of the Great Depression and the New Deal? All right, and lastly, that is your axes question. You making the decision. Did the government go too far by interfering too much? Did they not do enough because it didn't really fix the Great Depression completely? Or did they actually do exactly what they should have been doing for the level of intervention? That is your decision, and that is essentially your answer to the question. It's going to be your thesis statement for your axes paragraph. Our key skill for today is mostly sourcing, because what you're going to be reading and listening to today are perspectives on government intervention from during the Great Depression, from about 50 years afterward, and then from about 20 years ago. So across U.S. history after the Great Depression, right? How are things progressing forward with perspectives on government intervention in the economy? So you need to do sourcing because you're going to be looking at speeches from 3 different presidents across our history that had differing points of view. So you need to know their background, their position, their kind of like political ideas in order to understand how do they interpret this topic. All right. Key concept, remember that's the content that really at the end of this is the information you should be able to understand and really how the sources are chosen around these topics. So the New Deal permanently changed how often and how much the US federal government steps in to try to help the economy. So the New Deal was really the first time that this happened, and what that did is it set into motion that this started to be what the government tended to do ever after that up until now, even with COVID-19. Right? So lastly, interpreting the legacy of the New Deal. Legacy means whether it was beneficial or not. How should we view it? The legacy of the New Deal has been debated by major leaders and politicians for decades after the New Deal occurred, up to even present times. And again, that's why when we look at COVID-19, that there are debates as to how should the government be responding to this crisis? How much social distancing should there be? How much regulation of people's behavior? And then how much money should they be spending on all this? People debate that and disagree based on their political point of view. So you can see it applied to the Great Depression and the New Deal. It applies to what we're dealing with right now. All right, so let me show you on Google Classroom what the work looks like. So you'll head over to Google Classroom. Notice it is complete now. You've got the distance learning guide that has kind of all the links and useful stuff there, all the lessons along the way, up until the legacy of the New Deal right there. What I want you to notice is that it's got the document that you got a copy of, but it's also got a video. So the sources are there as text for you to read, but a few years ago, I also made a video of these clips from the speeches you're reading, because the clips were directly available and I was able to edit them. So you can listen to them and watch them if you want. Notice it's just a short little video. Or you can just read and follow along on the Google Doc as normal. Okay, so a little bit of direction there. So where you're actually going to start with is contextualization. And in order to contextualize what had happened from the Great Depression and New Deal and then across history, what I've provided you with are a couple graphs. So read the source lines. They explain what the graphs show, what the different lines mean, how they kind of interact with each other, and what are we seeing change over time across there. A couple questions on there. The first one is just about annotating the graph so that you can break down the information, and then using each of the graphs, document A and B, in order to make some inferences from the data. So which president spent the most money, rank them. And then which presidents had recessions during their presidencies. Again, you can look at this data on there. If you read the source lines and make sure you're reading all the labels on the graph, it's easy to get this information out there. If you disagree that it's not easy, just email me and we can talk, right? I might be wrong. All right, so after you contextualize it by seeing how did government intervention and spending change from the Great Depression all the way until present times, you're going to look at 3 different speeches and consider sourcing. Remember I said that's our main skill today. Close reading of the text, and then corroborating what the author, the president, has to say with the data I already showed you about what they did during their presidency. So the thing to kind of consider is each of these presidents is going to make an argument as to should the government be interfering more, less, or kind of in the middle. Once you figure that out on their source, on their point of view through their words in the close reading, you look back at the graph and say, did they actually do what they said they were going to do? So holding our leaders accountable by looking at, does the data actually corroborate with their stated point of view? Hint, hint, it's not always the same. So what they say publicly isn't what they do when they actually face a crisis. All right, lastly, at the bottom, corroboration question. It says, based on your answers above, which 2 presidents would agree with each other the most? Use the details you collected earlier to support your conclusion. You'll be reading about 3 presidents there. So corroboration is all about seeing how they match up or how they don't match up, how they contradict each other. Right below that, again, we got the graphs and we've got the 3 speeches there. I've included extended source lines on each of the presidents because other than FDR, we have not studied Ronald Reagan or Bill Clinton, and because of school not going on, we won't. So I provided you some information. Again, you're seeing how that fits in with these graphs. All right, so let's look back at the directions before we're all done. So remember your essential questions, seeing that there's different perspectives on the crisis, different ideas about how to approach it. The U.S. changed for sure, but how did it change? And then is government intervention in the economy during a crisis, is that appropriate or inappropriate? That is up to you to decide. This is another lesson where you can get quotations and information that will help you support that decision. Sourcing is important, key skill in the middle, because we are dealing with people with different points of view. You need to understand these presidents, who they are, or who they were, I should say, what era they existed in, how they interpreted things. And then key concept, the New Deal changed things, so the government tends to step in now. But the second key concept, the legacy of the New Deal is debated. It is not decided on whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. That is your decision to make that interpretation that historians do based on evidence, which you can collect here. All right, folks, once again, that is it. So the next 2 lessons after this are about reviewing and preparing for the assessments. So I'll still make directions videos for those, but they'll be very short because I feel like these next lessons are very straightforward. All right, that's it, folks. So you'll see me next time, and until then, bye.